The plan today is to wrap up these introduction topics, and the first step I said was introduction of a pushable object, and I had a very specific reason for choosing pushable object, and I said the second phase involves more complex situation and usually always under duress and always has a purpose. And the last phase, which would be this phase, obviously is mandatory, in some way mandatory. And we can see that this would be mandatory. There's no way to proceed unless you push these objects. And the reason that I wanted to pick this pushable object as a topic was because when I watch streamers play this game, a lot of them get to this point and then they just go into a rant about how this is the first time this pushable object has been introduced or used in any way, and how it's a horrible design, and how their expertise in design, and it's all pretty distressing to me, honestly. In that those are confirmation bias or unconscious bias issues, as well as fallacies of reasoning issues, in that there's actually nothing wrong with what the game did as far as introduction of the this mechanic. It was there the whole time. The player just missed it. And I mean, the question is, and it's something I had said earlier, if there's a criticism to be made for this game, it would be that it ramps up the difficulty to 11. But that's not a problem. I mean, well, it depends, really, if that's a problem or not. I have suffered the same issues with people. If you assume that a game works one way, and it works like it's designed one way, and the assumption would be that whatever you see in Santa Monica would be what the designers intended throughout the whole game. And if you play the game, there's two things. You either look at the data and evaluate, is that true or not? Or you just blindly assume that should be true. And I forget what kind of fallacy that is. But anyway, that's a deadly fallacy as far as if your assumption is wrong, then your whole evaluation of the game and everything about it is also wrong. And I, as a developer, I've experienced that myself a lot, in that I'll design something and people will look at it and they don't actually look at it at all. They just blindly assume that it should work this way, like some familiar way. And that's 100% wrong. I've tried to document that. I've tried to explain it, but none of that has any impact. They just say and assume and believe and refuse to accept that that's incorrect, which is kind of problematic in that I'm the developer. So you would think that would hold some water, but in our culture, well, I don't know about our culture, but I'm not even sure what the issues are. But at some point, it's like opinions matter more than facts. So that's the reason when I go through all of these things and I try to explain things, I always do it by showing what I'm talking about. I don't just say blah, 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 and as if that's a fact. I always try to show the evidence of why I believe that is true, because that's the most important part about figuring out how the game works. So that was the reason that we worked up to this puzzle. And then I had previously said that I had introduced at the very beginning of the game one of these introductions, but I introduced it without saying anything about it at all. And the purpose for that is that we're now going to work backwards from the end to that beginning, because again, I have a very specific purpose for that I've been wanting to cover for a while. So this will be our starting point for working our way into the past. Maybe some people will be able to guess where we're going.
I can't believe she got the cover of Glamourella this month. I mean, just look at her. Too fat, big teeth, and her complexion. Does she wash her face with a cheese grater? I mean, like anyone ever knew who Tawny Sessions was before I left the scene. She'd still be a fluff girl at Vivisection, making $10 a stiffy if I was still around. Ugh.
Okay.
Oh, right. You probably don't recognize me with this whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing I've got going on here. My name is Amalia. Last name? God, that's so blue collar, it makes me want to puke. I don't have a last name. Amalia's a look, an attitude, a state of being. What did you say? Nobody talks that way to me. I'm Amalia. Do you hear me? Amalia!
Okay.
Sure, whatever. Because she's a bitch with zero talent, who the world seems to think has taken my place as the hottest supermodel of all time? Could I be any more clear? That's it. As if I have to take this bullshit from some low-life Camarilla gopher girl. Hit the road, bitch. Okay. You want to get back on my good side? Then don't come back here until you've got last year's copy of Guy magazine, where I'm on the cover. You know, the one where I was wearing the gum wrapper and the 2 bottle caps. What? I want you to get the hell out of here right now and never come back!
All right, so that was accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish this year. And that the only way to get Amalia's quest, which means it's forced, is by insulting her. So that's the concept, and we have our next stop to head to. So this is our second topic of introductions, which we're working our way back towards the first in our topics of insults. And the reason that I wanted to pick this topic was because there was a question about, can Nosferatu have Vivi as their friend? And I had posted, yes, they can, and it's super interesting if you work that out for yourself, as opposed to just looking it up or having someone explain it. But anyway, and so that went on for a while, and then it come up again and again, and people said, oh yeah, somebody said you could do it, but I don't think that's right, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, well, I really, 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 really want people to investigate these complex parts of the game. I really, really want them to find them on their own. But screw it. I'm just going to make a video to show people how to do it. So I did, and a lot of people were, wow, that's super surprising. That doesn't make any sense, or that wouldn't be the outcome I would expect. I would expect that to make Vivi really mad. And my whole point is here that is the same point as working up to the pushable boxes. People get up to that point and they just are flabbergasted that that's introduced that late in the game, and so on and so forth. And people are kind of flabbergasted that this would be the solution to Vivi's problem, but they really shouldn't be. That's what I'm trying to say.
What are you doing? You can't just walk in here looking like that. If you must talk to me, follow me upstairs, and please, try not to attract any more attention.
Also, the whole 14 stairs thing is interesting if you count the stairs. But I'm not going to go into that.
I don't know how it is in the sewers, but there are hunters all over Hollywood lately. And unlike, say, me, you don't exactly blend in. It must be so difficult for you. How sad. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to offend you. I just meant it must take a lot of time to adjust to that form.
And so, what happened there is, you would think, oh, well, you don't want to offend anybody in this game because that will make them not give you quests. But actually, if you watch the evidence carefully and understand what's happening, you realize that the way to get people to like you in some situations is by offending them, or what you'd think would be offending, or you might guess would be offending. And the other thing that, well, I don't know, I'm going to say this anyway. The other thing you should know is that you can't use seduction. So logically, you must be looking for a different solution. So you should be looking outside. It's another one of those, I don't know. To me, it's another one of those situations where players kind of blindly assume, Vivi you need to use seduction on Vivi, and you need to suck up to her or else you're in trouble. But when you know, as a Nosferatu, that is absolutely not possible, you should know that your solution has to lie elsewhere. Anyway, and now I'm ranting. So I'm not going to do it. Well, maybe I should. I'll do it.
Forget I brought it up. I'm Velvet. Valor.
Okay, so...
Call me Velvet. It's been months since I've seen anyone new in here. I was starting to take it personally. And who should finally walk in but a real celebrity? I've heard a lot about you.
Me?
So, wouldn't you like to know about me?
So I said I wasn't going to do it, but I did it anyway. And I hope that people understand this, in that I insulted Amalia twice, and that would allow me to get her quest. But when I insulted her a third time, that failed. And the same thing just happened with Vivi. I called her, on her first, I don't know what that's called. Her first diatribe, I called her out on that. And then instead of going forward from there, I just insulted her again. And I failed this as well. Although you may have been totally clueless that I just failed that. Like, to figure these things out, you're going to have to go through them. Well, you can either look them up or have somebody explain them, or if you're going to try to figure it out by playing the game, you're going to have to go through it quite a few times to figure out how this actually works. And we're all done here, and we're ready to go to the beginning. So we've worked our way back into the first phase of the introductions, which is the one I said I presented, but I didn't comment on. And so we'll show that here. And hopefully the idea here is that, once a player becomes aware that these are processes in the game, they'll be looking for them and they'll pick them up. And then, as you pick this up and that up, I'm assuming a player wants to play the game several times, because obviously these are not things you get from playing the game one time. You're going to have to be able to pick up and understand these kinds of complex issues and puzzles, and designs, you're going to have to play the game many times, or I don't know. I doubt if anybody's genius enough to pick them up on one or two playthroughs. I don't know that, but on average, that certainly is not true. Anyway, here we go. Happy to be here, Arthur. Arthur, oh, you can stop.
I like you, sugar. You got balls. Pardon the expression, missy, but you'd make a good bounty hunter. Hey there, hold on a minute. You're pushing a bit too far now.
Okay, so we're done here. That wraps everything up from the end to the beginning, and it's like, okay, so this couldn't be more pointed. You know, the first insult, you can get people to like you, but you have to know when to use it, or you just do what I do, experiment to see if that works or not. Especially once you understand the mechanic, it's not that complicated. You're just like, well, I'll give it a shot because that's the mechanic. And the second part is that we failed all three of these by going too far. And again, it could hardly be more clear. You're pushing it a bit too far. Arthur tells you plainly to your face, this is the way the mechanic works. So anyway, that was all of that to work up to explaining the introduction part of the game, that mechanic of how things are introduced. And believe it or not, that's not even the most complicated design mechanic that we'll talk about. So I don't know if that's a threat or something people can look forward to. But in any case, that was what I wanted to cover. Actually, it wasn't what I wanted to cover. What I wanted to cover turned out to be too complicated, and I had to do a bunch more research for it. And some of these things are complicated to set up. So I hope I'll have that ready for next week. But that is the end of this week's video. So thank you very much for watching.